Oh, look at this. The new version has a pause button. Before, I would have to record the whole break and everything. So that's good. So I have this file called Etsy group. I cat, look at the bottom is the command I ran. Every time I created a new user account, it created a group with the same exact name. That's default behavior. You might not want that. This is a 4-column file. First column is the group name. The second column is the password that's encrypted in G-Shadow. The next one is the group ID, and this last column is the users that are in that group. So every time I create a user account, it creates a group in the same name, with the same exact name. So I'm going to show you something. I'm going to go into sign in as U4. And when I'm going to go to bash. When I create a blank file and list it, I can see, and we're doing permissions next, that U4 the user is the user owner and U4 is the group. I'm going to exit to go back to root. Cat Etsy password. I'm going to grep for U4. Cat Etsy group grep for U4. So this third column is the fourth column rather is showing me my group ID. It's referring to this group ID. So that's something called my primary group. Every time I create a new file or a new folder, my primary group is the group owner. You don't have that concept in Windows. And we can define who we want the primary group to be. If you don't define it, it automatically creates a group with the same account as your username and uses that as your primary group. So group add faculty. So we just created a group.
Can you change the name of the group afterwards? Or once you create it, that's it?
The name has no bearing on it, because the real thing is that group ID. So I could go in all the associated files and change that group name to whatever I want, because the computer really uses the number. So it really won't have any effect by going into Etsy group and Etsy G-Shadow and changing that group name. If you refer to that in any configuration file by name, you'll have to go to each one of those files. So we're going to do, what was the last user account we had? Give me 1 second. Stay right there. Okay, so we're going to create a new user add -G faculty user 6 U6. So we just created a user account called U6. and we said the primary group was faculty. So my SU is U6. I do not need to set the password for root to sign in as U6. If I'm signed in as root and I want to sign in as U6, I can just SU. It never asks me for the password. If you were the normal user account trying to sign into U6 and U6 didn't have the password set, you wouldn't be able to sign in. You can only do this from root. So until you set a password, essentially that account is disabled. So I'm going to touch another file, list long. Now who's the group owner? Faculty. So if any user is in that faculty group, they will have access to this file. And I'll show you what access they have later. So let's go in back to root. Let's do another group. Group add staff. So here I'm making faculty my primary group, but I'm also adding myself as a member. It's called a secondary member to the staff group. So if I sign in as U7 and touch a test file, list long, I can still see faculty is the primary group. I'm going to exit out of there. Cat Etsy group grep for U7. I can see that U7 is a member of that group. It's not his primary group. It's just his cat Etsy password grep for U7. Sorry guys, I spelled that wrong. So I can still see that U7's primary group is faculty. I'm getting that from Etsy group. The group ID of faculty is 107. U7's primary group is 1007. But if I also count Etsy group and query for U7, I can see that U7 is a member of the staff. If it's your primary group, your name won't be here. Your name, the only way you'll know it's a primary group is go look in Etsy password, look at that number, and compare that to their group ID. That will tell you who your primary group is. If that's your primary group, it won't be listed. Your user account won't be listed here. The only account that will be listed here is if you're a member as a secondary group. Let's create another group called text. User mod dash lowercase g is your primary group. Uppercase G is your secondary group. So I'm going to add, presumably add U7 to the text group. Created a new group, and then I wanted to add U7 to that new group. So my cat Etsy groups group. I can see I'm now part of text, but it removed me from staff. So when you add with this command, let's say I want to add U7 back to staff, but I want to keep him in text. You got to put an A in front of it. I'm assuming A means append. So unless you put that A, and I want to add him to a new group, I have to put all the old groups that he's currently in. So that A is append staff, but leave them also in text. It's not a very good way of doing this. Has anyone ever used test out before? Yeah, they had gotten this completely wrong in the book. A lot of books get it wrong. So I'm gonna hit enter. I'm still in text, but I'm also in staff. I have another command. G password. G password, I did help. Basically, the option that you want to do, and then the group name you want to join. A better way to add users to a group would be to do G password dash A for add. I'm going to add U4 to faculty. We have 4 main files for user accounts. Etsy password. That holds password account information, your primary group, things like that. Etsy shadow holds your password and aging information about your account. When your password's going to expire, when your account's going to expire, when it was created, all from that January 1st, 1970 date. We have Etsy group that holds information about your group name, your group ID, and users that are appended to that group. Then we have Etsy G shadow. So the first column is the group name. The second column is if the password is set. In the other file, Etsy group, it's just an X. The fourth column, or the third column here, is the group administrator. I don't have that set yet. But in the other file, Etsy group, I'm going to show you that one line in Etsy group, just so you can see it. Cat Etsy group grep for text. So group name, password, that is going to be the group administrator and any users that are part of that group. In Etsy group is going to be group name, password is it's inside of Etsy Shadow, that's what that X is telling you. The group ID and any users that are part of that group. So let's make U7 the administrator of the faculty group. So right now I have no administrator for this group. So gpassword, not a lowercase a, which means add a user to a group. An uppercase A will add an administrator to a group. Now I can see U7 as the administrator. If I need a user account that's just there to, he's like the manager, and I need him to be able to add users to a group and take users away from a group, I don't want to create I don't want to let that user have root rights. That would be overkill just for that purpose. So by doing this, and I sign in as U7, sorry, who am I? I'm signed in as U7. I can do gpassword -a U3 to faculty. I can add U3 to faculty, but if I try password a U3 to text, I'll get denied because I don't have the ability to add to text. I can only manage that faculty account. So I'm giving this user account U7 the permission that he needs to do his job and no more. Okay, so I'm going to try to give you some practice. Okay, let's do this first. Just to delete our current accounts. Exit out here and user del R, which deletes their user account name and all the user account information and deletes their home folder as well. That R means delete their home folder. U1. It didn't remove the group because there was another user in it. That's okay. Should have did this in a group, with a loop. Guys, one group didn't get deleted, so I'm going to delete that as well.
Can you combine commands on these user deletions?
Yeah. You could separate them by a colon, but a better way to have done it would have been for I in U1, U2, U3, something like this. Do user del -r $I. Done. The accounts are already deleted, but I could put them in a for loop. Yeah.
I got a thing that said Q4 is currently used by process 24759.
Okay, so basically you're nesting your user accounts. So do me a favor, type exit. Just keep exiting out. Keep exiting out. Okay, good. Now reopen it up, and you should be good. Essentially, you were signed in. And if we had did like a look at all the processors, I'm sure there would have been a bash session owned by U4. So guys, here's what I want to do now. I want to give you some test accounts. Okay, I'm going to pause this. Yeah, it is. Okay. Oh, numlock, sorry. So, if you type user add alone, it gives you all the switches. I did. So it's going to give you all the switches. Guys, and I'm going to record before the review. Okay. So if I want to create a friendly name, which switch do I use? C. Comma. Comment. If I want to change the shell, which switch do I use?
Yes.
If I want to set a primary group, which switch do I use? G. If I want to set a secondary group, which do I use? Right. If I want to set the location of their home directory, which switch do I use? D. And remember, if you use D, and the book has this wrong, you have to use M. You know, the book, it says M stands for move, it doesn't. M stands for make. So if you do this, use this switch, you have to use the -M as well. Okay, so I'm going to do user add -S, the skeleton, the shell is bin shell. -C, the friendly name is user1. -D, home domain user1, U1. Guys, this command is going to scroll off the screen. So I'm going to do something to break this command into multiple lines, but not actually execute. So what I'm going to do is, when I press enter, it normally executes a command. But I'm going to put the /, which means escape, so it'll just carry it to a new line and not actually execute it. So this is just the same big long command. You don't need to put this /. You just keep it in one line. I'm doing it just so it's readable on the screen. What was the other things I said? Friendly name is U1. Okay, primary group is faculty. Secondary group, this was a little bit about, I tossed you a little bit of curveball here. When I showed you the example, I only had you add them to one secondary group. But in this case, I want you to add them to two, staff and techs. So, uppercase G, staff, no space, techs. Because I use that D, I need to add the M. They don't need to be next to one another. Then the skeleton directory that I want to base it on will be Etsy scale cells, and then U1. This worked because I already had a group created called faculty. I already had a group called staff. I already had a group called techs. This skeleton directory was already created, and this folder was already created. So that satisfies all the requirements for that I wanted to do. So before you can do this, you need to make sure that this exists. You need to make sure that this exists. I'm going to pause it again. So I have this group already. I know that. I already have staff group. I don't have this. So if I go here and I do a list, Etsy, scale, text, it doesn't exist. So what I'm going to do is, I need to copy the existing one. Copy recursively, Etsy, scale, text. Excuse me, Etsy scale to Etsy scale text. List long Etsy scale text. List long A. List long A. I can see it exists. Guys, I want to show you something else. Copy recursively Etsy scale, let's say engineers. No, that's not what I want to do. Remove recursive Etsy scale. It's not working, but I'm going to remove this.
You mean to have the F after the recursive
Yeah, that's just force.
force?
Yeah. That means if there's any files inside of there, delete them as well. Remember, if I try to remove a directory using this command and it has any content, it won't work. So to remove a directory that has content, you have to use rm recursive force for it to work. So right back here. So this did what? What did this command right here do? It takes my current skeleton directory and makes a copy of it. So if I want to customize it, I never want to customize my default directory. You always customize this. How did we customize it last time we were in class? Remember, we edited .bashrc and .bash_profile. We also created a sample directory. So I'm just going to create a sample directory in it so we know that it's been customized. I don't care how you customize it. I showed you 3 customizations. We customized it with .bashrc, cat, Etsy, scale, cells, .bashrc. We added this. Guys, I counted this file. And I customize it with this line. And then we also did bash_profiles, and I customized it with this line. And then if I do a list long Etsy scale cells, I also added this directory. rm-rf scale. I had something else in here I didn't mean to add. Scale, cells, scale. The other thing so I'm going to customize that tech directory. I'm just going to make a directory inside of there called sample. So every time I create a new user account based on that skeleton directory, they'll automatically have that sample directory. That's the whole point of this, because remember, these are files that modify my profile. I don't want to have to do that every single time I create a new user account. I have users that fall in certain categories. There are sales users, there are tech users, there are an engineer. So I wanna create a skeleton directory based on those changes, and every time I create a user account, they'll have those changes. So in this particular case, I'm gonna do history, grep for copy, recursive, Etsy, scale, text. I just only want to see that one line. Okay, so here's what I did. I did this to copy my existing skeleton directory to a new folder. And then I modified that new folder with that. So that was the first step. That exists now. Now I want you to create a subfolder under home called text. And inside of that, I want you to put this user account's home folder. So before I can create this user account's home folder, I have to make sure that exists. And how do I do that? Home text. Just create the folder first. So at this point, this folder now exists, and I've customized it with the sample directory. This folder now exists because I used the mkdir. So guys, what switch do I use to do that? Dash, which? S. For the shell. But the problem is, this is a trick. If I don't do anything, it defaults to bash. So you don't really need any switch. Okay, what switch do I need to do this friendly name? What switch do I need to use to set the primary group? What switch do I need to set the secondary group? What switch do I need to based on a certain skeleton? S for shell, K for skeleton. What switch do I need to do to create their home folder? Okay, so I'm going to go back and help someone try to create that user account. Now, I'm going to put up here before you can create U2, you need to run the following commands. mkdir home text. That will create the text directory. Guys, remember, when you do this, it needs to be, when I actually use the dash M and D, I need to do home text U2. Recursive Etsy scale to Etsy scale text. And I'm going to customize it by doing mkdir Etsy scale text sample. Just create a sample directory in there. So all future user accounts will have it. Once you do that, then you can run the user add command with these switches. I'm going to go help someone. was testing something there, so. What I was trying to show didn't work out, so. I'm gonna pause the video. I'm gonna unpause. And so, new question is, I'm gonna create this one first. I already created the text directory. I already created my sample. Already created my skeleton directory. List long. So that's already there. It's been customized. My skeleton directory exists. List home, and I can see I have a folder for all my tech users. So make dir user add dash C. What was this user account? U2. I don't need to specify bash because that's the default. I'm going to add them to that primary group. My secondary groups will be staff. My home directory is going to be stored under, I'm going to break this to a new line. My home directory will be stored under home, text, U2, and the skeleton will be Etsy, scale, text, and my user account name will be U2. I broke it into two lines. Okay. Can I go to the next one? Okay, so now this one, U3, I need to create the group called engineers, and I need to create my skeleton directory ahead of time. So group add engineers. Copy my current directory, Etsy scale, to Etsy scale engineers. Then you customize it, guys. I don't care. You edit one of the profiles, you edit bash RC, you create a new directory, whatever you need to customize it. So user add, friendly name, user 3, primary group is engineers, the secondary group is text. Give me 1 second, I'll be back. I'm going to break it to a second line. The skeleton directory. Guys, I wanna point something out. Do you see how I put this space here? And then I put a dash K immediately? If you don't put this space here and you just put the slash, it'll be text dash K. It won't, you make sure that if you do that, you always put a space there at the end. If you don't, you need to put the space over here. My skeleton directory is scale, and my user account name is U3. Let's see where I messed up. It's giving me an error saying I have to use the M, which we have been using all along without. I'm just going to put the M here. I don't know why it's asking me to do that, because we've done it a few times without the M already.
Yeah, it happened to me too, Professor, when I did it.
Okay, so in any case, I'm just going to put that here too. Oh, this is where we really need it, but it's done.
Can you go over a little bit, please?
I'm sorry?
Can you go over
To this part?
to the first, this,
What happens if I need a user add and all the switches and then I'm missing out? I pressed enter and then I forgot to put like a switch. How do I?
Okay, so let's say if it's a group thing, I would use the G password. If it's a secondary group thing, I would use the G password to fix that.
It's the skeleton directory.
Okay, in a case like that, okay, so in a case like that, if it's skeleton, I would just do user del recursively U3 and rerun the command properly.
Okay.
But if I just wanted to change like the shell, I could do user mod dash D user mod dash S bin shell and that will change the shell.
Okay.
You know, but remember, once you've created that directory, you can't modify it by creating it by pointing to a new shell. The only point of that new skeleton directory. That skeleton directory gets copied the first time. So if you already did it, it's already copied another skeleton. So you kind of be merging two together, and I don't know what the results would be, because you'd have the original skeleton directory that you had when you created the account, plus you're trying to merge into another one, you might not get the results that you want. So the easiest case is delete the user account, and this recursive means delete the home directory as well. So you start with a clean one. Okay, so guys, I wanna move on and talk about some other things with this chapter. Guys, you know this, have you seen this on a Mac or an Ubuntu box or Kali Linux, that sudo command?
Yeah.
Basically, what it allows you to do is, if you have this enabled, it would give non-privileged users the ability to run certain types of root type commands under their own account. I'm going to go into vi etc sudoers. I believe it's this one. Let me verify that. It is. I'm going to go back up. Go to that file. So here you define what rights they have as sudoers. So vi etc sudoers, let me move this up a little bit so people can see. Do you remember during the installation, there was when we created that first user account, there was a little checkbox that said make an administrator? All you're doing was configuring sudoers. So go into vi etc sudoers and do a / and we'll search for wheel. I don't know where they got this name. This is commented out. See the two hash marks? That means that is some comment to tell you what's going on. This one hash mark is an example command that's not effective because it's commented out. So if I want this to be effective, I would just remove that comment. So the way most systems are set up, they have this wheel account. If you're a user in that wheel account, you can run sudo. So what they do is they have two levels. The wheel group is allowed to run all commands, not a limited subset of commands. I might create a group, give them the ability to run certain commands that affect the networking, but nothing else. But in this case, the wheel group can do all commands. Now, when you run a command, the first time you run a privileged command, it's going to prompt you for your password. Or I can say, do the same thing. If I comment this out and uncomment this, it will do the same thing but not prompt you for the password. And it'll keep the password in memory for a few commands, and then at a certain point you'll log out. So it's going to make sure that when you walk away from your terminal, someone doesn't walk up to your box and just run a root command. It's going to prompt you not for root password, for your own. So it's already set up for you. All you have to do is add a user to a group. So I'm going to press escape and quit out of here. So that's already configured. There's all kind of groups already pre-configured. You just have to add them to that group. So guys, to keep this simple, I'm going to create user add U9. I'm not going to customize that account at all. Well, I should have, but G password add U9 to the wheel group. So if you want to make sure that your user account can do something administratively, add them to the wheel group, and then train them how to use sudo. So I'm going to sign in as U9. Now I can type in sudo vi etc password and make changes to the password file if I needed to.
So when you're installing and you press, yeah, this is a administrative user, that user gets added to that file,
To that group.
and if you don't, and you do sudo, you won't be able to get privileged, okay.
Unless you're in that group
But
or not.
even if you check that administrative box, you're not an automatic administrator unless you run sudo.
Right.
Okay.
All by checking that box is you're adding them to the wheel group, allowing them to run sudo commands. So I'm going to hit enter. Oh wait, this isn't going to work. I didn't set my password.
Right.
So I need to exit out of here and set my password. Now I'm going to ask you is not U9. Sudo vi etc password. Normally, you wouldn't be able to do anything here because you're not root. It's just kind of giving you a civics lesson. I'm going to type in my password for U9. Now look at this. When I save it, it actually saves. I didn't get any warning that I was denied or anything like that. But the thing is, now I know who ran that command. In my security logs, sudo will actually document that the user U9 saved that file. Now, if everyone uses root, if everyone uses the default root account, you don't know who did what. So this adds a certain level of accountability as well. You know, if you have one network admin, you have no problem. But if you have 4 different network admins, you can't all use the root account and have any sort of accountability. Because you could say, I didn't do it, you did it. You know, things like that. I set my password. I'm going to show my history, guys. I'm going to go out of here. Created a user account, added them to that group, set my password, and then I can do any sudo command that I want. Sorry, SU, I'm going to do U9. I'm just kind of looking over the chapter to see if there's anything I missed. ID, guys, the ID command lets you know information about your user account. Here's my user ID. My GID is my primary group. So every time I create a new file or folder, that owns it. Here's my secondary groups plus my primary group will be listed there. Here's some SE Linux stuff. I'm not going into that right now. So the ID command shows you information about your current account.
When you create these, can you do an expiration on these accounts?
Yeah, that's what we're going to do next. we're gonna take a break and then do this next. This is Chapter 6, Lesson 9. That's what we're doing next, which is the expiration date. So let's take a break and then we'll come back and do that, and that'll be it for the day. some people to get back. Guys, wanna look at this NC Shadow, first. Should I pause it? No. I'm gonna pause, resume. Okay, guys, there's first, if you look at Etsy Shadow, you see it's a file, a bunch of columns delimited by a colon mark. If you see the first column is the user account name. The second column is your password. That $1 can mean different things. If it's this, the password's encrypted with MD5. If it's a 2A, blowfish. 2Y, blowfish. SHA-256 if it's a 5. SHA-512 if it's a 6. We're using SHA-512 to encrypt our passwords. The next column, how many days the password's changed since the epic date, which is January 1st, 1970. The next column, so in this case, it's been 18,147 days since January 1st that this password's been changed. Today, incidentally, is 18,147 days since that date. The next column is the minimum amount of days that they have to change their password. 0 means it's not really set. The maximum number of days that their password is going to be valid. Right now, 99,999 is the last epic date, and basically at that, that means it's non-expired. You're going to give them a warning 7 days. Inactive number of days that this account can actually be used before you disable it. Right now it's set to 0. So you can kind of give like a soft warning. You know, you can, if it expires, you'll give them 7 days after the password expires before they have to change it. And then the date the account is actually expired. In this case, these 3 fields aren't being used. You know, the warning, the inactive period, and the expire date is set to 0, is blank. So, guys, if you want to force your password, your users to change the password next time they log in, you can do change age D0 for user 9. And we're going to Etsy Shadow grep for user 9. And that changed this field right here. The minimum number of days before they have to change their password. So if we sign in as user 9, it's going to prompt us to change our password. If you want to expire the account, change age, expire. Now, a lot of Germans work on Linux. A lot of people from Netherlands work on Linux. So they kind of put it in a different format than we're used to. So we're going to do it December 31st. For digit century, 2-digit month, 2-digit year, and then you put in the username. It will automatically calculate the epic date for you. You don't have to go figure that out manually. You can put in this date and it will give that date in the results.
Thank God for that, huh?
Yeah. Man, guys, this isn't a command I ever used when I did system admin work. So I'm not real familiar with it. But if you go man, change age, it gives you a lot of good examples. You know, there's a -D example, there's a -E example. If we want to change the inactive column, if you want to look at all the information, this is kind of cool. Change age, list, user 9. Account expires on the 31st, minimum number of days before it's changed, maximum number of days between password changes. I might want to change that to maybe, they have to change it every 45 days or something like that, you know, whatever you want to change. Number of days before there was a warning. Right here, because I changed it that they have to change the password next time they sign in, I'm
Can you
getting
get
that.
more granular than that, or no?
That's it. So if I SU as U9, I guess you have to sign in as yourself, not SU from root, because it doesn't check the password. Let me try this. U9. It's prompting me for my password. It won't let me use the same one. So it works. Guys, let me log out. I want to show you that again. Why did it only show me student and U9, but not U2 and U3 in that graphic screen? Why do you think it did that? It only showed student and U9.
Because
The
you're only
idea
logged in
where
under
the
those
student's
two.
supposed to be the administrator and U9 is the one that you created, right?
No, you BI'd it.
No, because those are the only two accounts that have a password set. U2 and U1, we never set the passwords, so it's going to assume that the graphic screen is going to assume that they're disabled accounts. So it's only going to show you accounts that have passwords set. Let's create an account called what does S stand for again?
No,
It's the
Show.
bash file.
Show.
What if I want, in reality guys, you never start a service with your root user account. If that service gets hacked, they'll have root rights. So you always want to create a non-privileged user account. Then if you want to start your web server with that non-privileged user account and it gets hacked, no big deal. But when you create a service account that's only used to stop and start a service, you don't want people to sign in with that account. So what you can do is you can change your shell to that. So even if that account gets hacked, there's no way they can sign in. Okay, so you're making a user account whose sole purpose is to stop or start a service. When I run a web server, I want it to run under this account and no other. But I don't want this account to get compromised. So I can give the shell to be sbin no login, so they don't have any sort of login shell. So if I try to su as that, it won't allow me to log in with that account. Even though that account actually exists, and I can use it to stop and start that service, you know, I can automatically, when the system boots up, launch that application, a web server. It will run it as that user account, but that user account can't open bash or anything like that. It blocks them for security reasons. I'm gonna do more Etsy password. Here's my root account. Of course I have a shell, but bin, all these accounts are service accounts that don't have a shell. Again, all service accounts. So you'll see that quite often. Look, Red Hat systems, anything lower than a 1000 is a service account. Normal user accounts, by default, when you create a new user account, it goes from 1000 up.
Can you have more than 1,000 user, service accounts?
You can, but that's a lot of services. You know, but the default is, yeah, you could, but then you have to make some arrangements. There's some default files you can change. But just be aware of what the no login is doing. Guys, we're going to get to SSH and stuff like that. There's some good examples on how to expire the account, so play around with that. Okay, so let me see. Okay, guys, that's it for user accounts. Everything in there, everything in the chapter, we covered all those commands. Now, the book has these predefined, remember, this book was designed for those people in boot camps. And they want you to be in a very restricted environment. They run launch a lab, it runs a certain set of commands, and only those commands will be accepted. So don't worry about if you can't run that lab because you don't have those labs available to you. But you know, the more important thing is look at the command that they're running and say that's setting the password age to 180 days. So you do it for whatever account you created. If you have problems, I gave everyone my text number, but you've got to get in practice and text me. We have one more lab before the midterm, and I'm going to have you create a bunch of user accounts. I'm going to have you move some folders, create some files, set permissions, create groups and things like that. It can get confusing really quickly. Start practicing now. Don't wait until just the review. The next thing we're doing is chapter 7. The first half of this book goes a lot slower than the second half. It'll go a lot quicker. That's it for today, guys. I'm not going to start permissions today, but I'm going to upload this video to YouTube.